teachers and pianists and colleagues and friends. Today we're talking about how to teach a short story by Dmitri Kabalevsky. This is from Opus 27 and it's number 20. It sounds like this. If we haven't met before, my name is Jana Williamson and welcome to my home piano studio in the suburbs of Chicago. I enjoy sharing content here on YouTube as well as other places around the web. If you haven't checked out my free resources page, just go down to the description of this video and you'll find a link directly to my website where I have several things offered, particularly for piano teachers who are interested in looking at intermediate historical repertoire as well as a lot of other pedagogical ideas. This is such a beautiful, plaintive piece by Kabalevsky. I love Kabalevsky. I realize I haven't actually done a ton yet on this channel. If you have a favorite Kabalevsky piece, please feel free to leave it in the comments and if there's something you'd like me to cover. But I would also just love to know what your favorites are. This particular piece I decided to cover because someone recently asked in a teacher's Facebook forum about particular examples of pieces that used inverted chords. And I really feel like this piece is simply an etude in left-hand second inversion chords. There's that first E flat major at the very beginning. And they just move from there. We're going to talk about that in a second, which accompany a beautiful melody. Kabalevsky and many of his contemporaries in the former Soviet Union, such as Khachaturian, used a lot of Russian or Ukrainian or similar folk tunes or melodies that just sounded like a Russian folk tune. And so much of his music is just so beautifully melodic with these interesting chords that you might not expect, which make it more interesting, more quirky sometimes, a little bit more exotic sounding. So most Kabalevsky is not super dissonant on your ears and difficult for people to take in the first time, but it does have a few notes here and there that make it a little more interesting. So along those lines of this just being that melody over broken chords, I think this is a great example of a piece where you can work to integrate theory as well as practice within your piano lessons. If your student is working on playing second inversion chords, or if they're working on understanding diatonic chords in a major scale, then this is such a great example. So let's take a look at it. If I block the chords, which is absolutely what I would have my students do, we're in E flat major. So we start with that E flat major tonic chord in second inversion, right here in the middle of the piano. And all it does is just move down step by step through all of the diatonic chords. So the root of that chord, of course, is right in the middle, starting with the E flat. So we have 1, then we have the 7, the leading tone, that diminished triad. 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is a great time to just introduce, if you haven't already, what the Roman numerals are within a major key, that the major chords use a capital and that the minor and diminished chords use a lowercase Roman numeral, and then of course that diminished chord is that little tiny circle to indicate that it's diminished. So what's amazing about how Kabalevsky has done this, he's not used in this first section up through, measure 12, he hasn't used any accidentals, nothing outside of the key signature or the major scale that we're using. And on top of that, the melody has several repeated notes, and yet it sounds so nice and so interesting the way he's worked it. So if I block it and don't play repeated notes, want my student to know that that's the outline of what we're doing here. You could also even simplify that to just the roots. And any other way you want to highlight what's actually going on harmonically would be just fine. Now, that said, in the B section, we get these lovely twists of interesting harmony, and there are a lot of accidentals. In fact, Kabalevsky takes us to C sharp minor, which most certainly does not belong in the key of E flat. C minor would be the relative minor, of course, but he's taken it up into a sharp key a half step higher than the relative minor, so that's really wacky and way out there. And it's quite interesting how he gets there. So if we start in measure 9, we have G minor and A flat. That's all really kind of normal. Again, he's using a lot of repeated notes. And then it gets wacky with this G in the right hand, and that is part of a E fully diminished 7th chord, and the left hand's just going to walk up by half steps through those diminished 7ths. So here's what it sounds like, just blocked. And then this magical half step moment too. Ooh, C sharp minor. And the right hand, of course, is up on the G sharp. So let me play that a little bit again as it's actually written, and just enjoy that harmonic movement. Think about how unusual that is and yet how it works. The other magical moment harmonically is at the end of this section. We've been very securely in C sharp minor. So if I start at measure 21, I'm really feeling like I'm kind of hanging around C sharp minor. Which takes us back to E flat. And he does that entirely again through half step motion, so that the downbeat of 24 is a B flat 7 chord, which is the dominant of E flat. Takes you right back there. One other little thing about how he's written this, at the end, the left hand just continues going down until it reaches that lower E flat and resolves with the tonic chord. So, definitely spending a lot of time on analyzing that left hand using basic Roman numerals as far as understanding this. Now, once you get to the B section, I would not be doing Roman numeral analysis on a mid-intermediate student for that wacky stuff, but I would talk with them about half-step motion as well as what key does it feel like we're in temporarily, which of course is C sharp minor for quite a while in there. And we would take a look at how did Kabalevsky get from C sharp minor back to E flat major, and really noticing those half steps, which really make this whole idea work. While the left hand is doing all of that, of course, the right hand has to play the melody expressively. There are loads of tenuto markings in here, lots of these. I mean, that's not a very interesting melody. It's one note. But it does build, and it gets this little ya-da-da, almost like something very plaintive and asking you for something, persistent asking until it releases. And that happens throughout the piece. So that's one thing you want to draw your students' attention to, of course. Because this piece is not contained in a lot of collections, I am looking at this in Keith Snell's, it's just Kabalevsky Op.27. This is a very affordable book. Oftentimes the Russian masters from the 20th century pieces are a little bit more expensive. I think this has to do with a history of copyright issues with Russian music being put into American publications. So I do recommend that book. There's so many great pieces from this collection that it's worth having it, and it's not a huge expense. If you're interested, you can also look at the Hal Leonard Schirmer Performance Edition. There is both a Op.27 as well as a collected pieces from a couple of opuses, and I will link all of those in the description of this video so you can go straight to purchasing them. But I will say those Schirmer Performance Editions are more pricey than the Chose Keith Snell edition here. I hope that gives you some ideas on how to teach this lovely piece by Kabalevsky, as well as thinking through other pieces with chord inversions. Do you have favorite pieces with triad inversions? Leave those in the comments. And again, I'd love to hear your favorite Kabalevsky pieces that you love for teaching or playing. He's one of my favorite composers for sure. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, give the like button a click, share this video with a friend or colleague, and I wish you all the best in your teaching.